welcome back to my show. I'll be joined by Jayne, Fillon, and Greygal, and we're going to talk about NPSIs. I'm trying really hard not to laugh at my video because I'm watching it again on the live stream that I have muted. We're going to talk about NPSIs, which is what I did last week. If any of you remember, I ran an NPSI, and so we're going to be discussing kind of the concept of NPSIs, how they're run, how to start your own, etc. Right now, we have Jayne with us. I know Greygal is currently running her own NPSI, but I'll let Jayne introduce himself.
That's really quite the intro video you have there. Is that actually you dancing?
No, that's just my face, and it's really funny.
Who made that?
Oh, Rich Javix did, and
Oh, of course it's Rick's.
yeah, and so the first time they showed everyone, we just all lost our shit, and now I have to play it because everyone loves it.
It's a good video. Anyway, I'm Jayne Fillon. I'm the guy who's pretty much known for being the NPSI guru around Eve. I founded Specter Fleet, and Specter Fleet, if you don't know, is currently the largest NPSI organization in the game, and NPSI loosely translating into a group that runs public fleets.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, NPSI stands for Not Purple Shoot It, which pretty much means if they're not in your fleet, you should shoot them, and if they are in their fleet, don't shoot them. So people have joined up with war targets to go out and do roams and all this and that. And I know I've had a lot of fun with it watching people who were like formerly enemies like team up and like brawl each other out, and then they not usually people don't shoot blues. So like I don't know if you guys have seen Laz flying NPSIs, but he won't shoot at goons, but then he'll shoot at other people. But then he won't help the goons either, so I get really mad at him when he does this. But yeah, so that's what.
Yeah, it was just the other day we were roaming through Russian space, and I'm the FC, which is kind of weird because I'm blue, but I was flying the command destroyer and going after blue targets. It felt kind of cheap because the command destroyer is what actually manages to get targets off station, but fuck it, science. So
I know.
I I've been a part of SASH, which is a corporation that's operated as NBSI in different areas of the world, or the universe rather, like Rahadalon. We lived in Placid for a while. And now we're a part of Triumvirate, so of course we always get the diplomatic incident mails. It's like where you AWOXed us or you killed us, and you look at the kill mail and it's like 100 fucking randoms, and it's like 90% of the way down the list it's like one person that you were blue to, and they're asking for like full SRP, like ship replacements will reset you, and it's like even if I didn't join in on the kill, you'd have died anyway, so suck it up. Yeah. Well, our Diplo team got really, really good at telling people to just go fuck themselves over the years, so.
I wouldn't call that very diplomatic, but I can totally see why you guys would do that.
Yeah, the Russians are very, very particular about this. They absolutely hate it when you breach blue standings, but oh well, I guess is all I really have to say to that.
Yeah, and I know. So right now, Greygal's running her Sunday in PSI, and I was on one of those ones, and I was streaming it, so I got an insider tip of, hey man, there's a wormhole to get out. So we all took the wormhole, and there was a blue Megathron on the other side, and but it was only blue to me. So everyone's like, oh, let's shoot it, and so we're shooting at him, and he got saved by a couple Guardians, but then he combos me like, hey man, why'd you shoot me? Like, I don't fucking know you. Like, why would I not shoot you? We're in a bunch of frigates and you're in a Megathron. Calm down.
Yeah, it's led to some pretty funny scenarios. Like one time, we were in, I think it was EC Pater, and I had a triage carrier, and then I had some guys supporting me in like battleships and whatnot. And all the other battleships were blue to this wormhole group that I didn't know about, and they had eyes on us. So they warped in to just like get this carrier because they thought their blues were attacking this carrier. Joke's on them, it was actually triage for the battleship support around me, and all my battleship buddies just turned on their friends and just brutalized all of them. So they got so angry. It was pretty funny. So it does give us the advantage. There's so many different tools for like local tools or getting intel, but you can't really get intel proper on an NPSI fleet unless you know like which group is running it. And if it's not an organized group like RVB, Specter, Bomber's Bar back when it was actually good, if it's not a group like that you know of, then you're just not going to be able to find out who they are, what they're doing, who the FC is, anything. So, there are definitely benefits to flying NPSI. You get into these really comical scenarios every once in a while.
Yeah, and so Greygal just joined us. Hey Greygal. We've
Hey,
started
Greygal.
we started the show already. So if you want to give us a quick introduction while you're running your MPSI.
Hi, Ronnie. Hi, Jane. I am actually FCing a fleet right this moment. We're sitting on the oh shit gate in D87. I'm sorry, the zero SHT gate in D87.
It's okay.
So I'm going to be kind of in and out a little bit here, but I am Greygal of Redemption Road and Affirmative Alliance, and we do public realms.
All right, so let's. Me and Jane have kind of been like shooting the shit about NPSIs, but we can kind of start at the beginning of like how do you. I want to say how does one actually make an NPSI, but how do you make an NPSI where people don't think that you're gonna AWACS them? If you're like, hey, let's do a battleship NPSI, people don't assume that you're just gonna like undock and just blap them in low sec or null. How do you guys like initially start that?
1 second.
All right.
I'll answer that in her place then. I think a big part of it is mutual distrust, which is a kind of funny way to put it. But when you have 10 guys in fleet who are all equally distrustful of one another, if one out of the 9 decides to shoot somebody, the other 9 are going to turn on him in self-preservation. So that's how it all started, really. Now, of course, you get scenarios where one person can kill everyone else. For example, a smart bombing battleship versus bombers or something like that. And, these incidents do happen occasionally, but for the most part, started on the foundation of mutual distrust, and now it's just a lot of the fleets that we run are so large or so well organized that it's extremely hard to disrupt, even if you do want to destroy them. Just like a NBSI fleet, for example. If you have 50 Cerberuses or even something smaller like 40 MOAs, the only real way to fight them is to actually fight them. So being a single individual is not going to affect a fleet of 40, 30 people is the same as it would in a fleet of 5, a fleet of 6, something like that.
All right. Makes sense. Do you have anything to add, Grega?
I know that to be the experience for most NPSI. We've been particularly lucky. We've just never had it be an issue where people shoot other people in the fleet or worry about AWACSing and stuff. Everybody tends to hold the purple at the highest of honor. So we've been really lucky with that, though.
Yeah, the biggest problem that we have is that there's a certain portion of the PvP population within EVE that is very, very concerned with their kill boards. And so these people see NPSI fleets as an opportunity to smurf their kill boards. So they'll either bring ECM burst or smart bombs, which are both area of effect weapons, and then fly them in the middle of both the fleet we're fighting and our own fleet ourselves. So having a purple, for example, ECM bursting us is really a pain in the ass. But that's probably the most annoying breach of the NPSI rules of engagements that we face on any regular basis. And they don't kill you. You might get a lucky jam on a Logi or something, but beyond that, it doesn't make a huge difference.
Yeah, see, I think for us, because in the beginning we were so much, coming out as with the stuff from the way agony ran roams and being kind of anti-ganked, the kind of quiet roam, the roam without all the chaos. It attracted a kind of different pilot for us, the regulars.
That makes sense. I'm actually pretty glad to hear that you guys don't get too many, I guess I want to say bad guys or bad apples. Because I know I do. When I run in PSIs, they're very small. They're the 5-man, 10-man, and we rarely have any issues. I don't think I've ever actually had an issue. But I'm
Yeah,
glad.
that's good.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear these larger, more larger, more established organizations don't have that as much either.
And it's if it does happen, you ban them. They use an alt. You ban that alt. They'll run out of characters eventually. That's really it. There's only so many steps you can take. There's a lot of things that the bigger organizations do to, run the same sort of thing. Like, again, using my experiences with Triumvirate, if you're trying to form a big fleet to fight a war, you need to have all of its operational security, you need to have secure comms, you need to have API, you need to have checks, you need to all this sort of thing. And NPSI is really about getting 95% of the finished product for 50% of the effort. So we don't have the greatest of security. Like, we can't stop them from coming in the front door, but we have the minimum tools available to kick out the bad apples, which keeps things, healthy for the rest of us.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I can totally understand why you wouldn't want to go through all that effort just for like a weekly roam or something like that. So I
You know,
guess
it's like if we had to do API checks on everyone that joined our fleet, it just wouldn't exist.
Line U-Q. Oops.
Where am I aligning?
oh man.
Excuse me.
I was gonna say, Greygal, I know you do the new bro in PSI ones, which I think would be a little more difficult than what Jayne does with Specter, where it's more established players who kind of know the game. So, Greygal, how do you handle both having new people in a fleet as well as trying to organize a bunch of new people who don't ever really fly with each other?
Oh, the new roams are the easiest and simplest ones because the new players are so afraid of making a mistake. They actually do everything you say. They follow all the orders. They're so afraid that they're going to screw up that they never do. It's never the new players that are the problem. It's the ones who think they know better that are the problem children.
Yeah, I agree with Greygal. The new bros are generally pretty good. The worst kind of person that we have to deal with is the person who is either very rich, very high in skill points, but is still absolutely terrible at the game. Those people are the difficult ones to deal with because they think they know what they're doing, but they don't. And often that group of people always also overlaps with the group of people who get very angry when a fleet inevitably does not have a happy conclusion. This is PvP. You win some, you lose some. So you get that side of people. But in terms of how to, command from that perspective, you're not flying with a group like NC or PL where, they're the more elite organizations and everyone in there is assumed to know what they're doing. When you're commanding or running one of these fleets, you really have to deal with everyone at the lowest common denominator. You have to assume everyone is, well, maybe not pants on head retarded, but at least new to the ship they're flying. You delegate tasks to the logistics commander to give explicit instructions to the logistics group. You have to explain cap chains every time you go out. You need to explain broadcasting every time you go out. So there's a lot of things that are repeated, and just through repetition that is passed into the collective knowledge of the organization. And over time it gets better, but every time we always FC to the lowest common denominator.
That's a really interesting point. I always figured new bros would be more difficult because I've taught a few people before, and it's very hard to put myself in their shoes of like, okay, they have no idea how to align. Like, I have to explain aligning to them or something along those lines. And I guess when I run MPSIs, I always do fly your own ship. So I never have to tell people what to do. And when I do new bro type stuff, I always explain it, try to at least very detailed. So I'm like really surprised to hear that you guys say that new bros are the easiest to deal with.
Yeah, if you're flying something like a MOA, now a MOA is obviously a little bit, you're probably a month or a month and a half into the game at that point. But if you're flying something like that in a fleet, all you have to really do is do your initial setup. So, orbit your anchor, turn your afterburner on, turn your hardeners on, and then follow broadcast. And after that, it's really click F1, click F1, click F1. And it's really an exhilarating experience for those kinds of people because, they see these ships dying, these ships that are worth many times more than their personal wealth, and they feel like they've been a part of something bigger than themselves. It's really a unique experience for them. Now compare that to somebody who wants to fly, for example, a Balgorn in fleet, or we have very, very often we have people bringing Nestors and Balgorns to our fleets because they never get an opportunity to use these ships elsewhere, and they want to make these ships useful. And they're not useful in fleet combat. In like 99% of circumstances, Barghests and Nestors are not useful. But these people will bring them, and since they're a Barghest, they're like, well, since it's already a billionisk battleship, let's have Pith A hardeners on it, and you end up with this 4 billionisk atrocity that flies in your fleet of cruisers or something like that. And then one of the things is being a fleet commander is you can't save everyone. So if you're in a fleet fight and somebody's tackled, but you're losing and you need to leave, you're going to fleet warp. You're not going to wait for one guy to be tackled. And inevitably, since the Barghest is the shiny target, one interceptor from the other side is going to keep that guy permanently pointed. I'm going to fleet warp off because we're losing the fight. Barghest is going to be caught stuck behind, and he's going to complain and bitch on fleet comms because we left him to die. So that sort of circumstance.
Did you see where he warped to?
Way more than flying with new bros. New bros are nice, happy, and they're absolutely thrilled and excited with each and everything that happens. Every time I fly a new bro roam through Losec, I have a lot of friends who live in Corps in Losec. If I run past one of them, be like, hey, can you log your Titan in? Can you undock your capital? And just seeing the new bro fly past these capital ships for the first time is, they love everything. It's absolutely just a thrill to work with new bros.
Yeah, always gotta love those new bros. So then, I guess my next question is how exactly do you find fights in an NPSI? Because I know, like when I fly,
They find us.
the fights come to you. Is that what you said?
Yeah, yeah. The fights come to us more often than not. People know that we have a roam out and about, so they will actually put it on their calendars and schedule counters to it, or they come hunting us.
Is that the same for you, Jayne?
Yes, sometimes. Specter fleet is huge, I think is the nice way to put it, in the fact that, our largest fleets have been upwards of 500 participants, and you cannot just roam aimlessly with 500 people and expect to find a fight. You just can't. So, yes, during the weekdays, that's what we do. We roam in areas of space where active PvP alliances live, and they do eventually find us. We hunt their ratters, we camp their gates, we camp their stations, we entosis their nodes, anything to really provoke a reaction. It's basically like helicopter dicking in public. They'll form a defense fleet, they'll fight us, we'll die, they die, doesn't matter, everyone's happy. The weekend fleets were moving much more towards arranged fights. So, for example, yesterday, we had an arranged fight against Providence because we were flying T3s and we had something like 130 people in fleet with 20 capitals for support, which is it's a very powerful doctrine. So you can't just show up and have a person, ready to form 150 guys in an Apex doctrine to fight you. So, probably brought nightmares with some subcap logi and some fax machines. We brought our T3s and dropped some capitals of our own, and we had a nice brawl. But if we hadn't let them know we were coming, in advance, we would have either been waiting 2 hours for them to form up or never gotten a fight at all because they just, won't risk it. They're not going to throw T1 cruisers at a T3 fleet. They're going to want to actually have a fight. And the arranged fights are much preferable to me, mostly because, with Greygal's method, she's out roaming in some area of space, and maybe no one's forming for her. Maybe someone is, she doesn't know that. I've had a few roams in the past, and this is years ago, where we roamed for 4 hours and found nothing at all. And, that's always a downer when you go out and you're like, fight me, fight me, fight me. Aw, stand down. So I definitely like the arranged fights. There's the ones that I do with Providence the most often. Jayne, wonderful FC from Provi, and one of the new CSMs for the 11th term. But, Jayne is great. We pick a time and we pick a class of doctrine. So, for example, tomorrow at 1900, we're doing this again. I picked Monday 1900, and he picked battle cruisers. Now, we don't know which battle cruiser either side is going to bring, but we'll show up at a system and then we'll fight. So that's how we do things on weekends, just because our events have gotten too large in recent history. But with like Greygal is, the tried and true method of finding things to do is going somewhere where an active PvP groups lives and pissing them off.
Yeah. We know where, the fights are also. We know who will undock for us, and by design we keep our fleets very, accessible for the lower skilled, for the low wallet and stuff. So it makes our fleets very engageable. But we do routinely roam very far. 50, 60, 70 hops is not unusual. I think we may have a target right now. And we're actually in catch, so all of those listening, come hunt us.
I was gonna say, do you normally get fights as well, Greygal, or have you had days where there's absolutely nothing in like null sec or low?
It's more like we'll have days where we don't get a fight, but we get plenty of targets. But we end up kind of feeling a little bad because we ended up ganking everybody and never losing anything. It's not so much that we feel bad about it. It's just that it's like we really want that furball of a fight where you're calling primaries left and right, barely able to keep up with, and people are bouncing in and out, and it just gets your hands shaking and all. We love the good fight. Good old-fashioned brawl, especially.
Yeah, like two other ways, just thinking about it, like Mangala, or wow, Greygal, you're not Mangala, you're Greygal. Like Greygal said, sometimes we do these 50, 60 jump roams, and normally what we do when we're doing one of those is we keep it to Tech 3 destroyers and below, and we have a doctrine that it's really quite popular. It's called 1,000 Cuts, and doesn't matter what you bring as long as it goes 8 AUs per second, so it warps at 8 AUs per second, which is as fast as a combat interceptor. And what we do with this fleet is we try and catch ratters. So we just firebomb through systems like as fast as we can. We don't fleet warp. It's everyone free burn. Everyone hunts in different systems simultaneously. And as soon as anybody tackles anything, you just put W's in fleet, link the system, and then everyone converges on you to help out. So, one person will tackle a carrier, and they'll be like, I got a carrier, I got a carrier. And then like 100 people will, converge on that location from different areas. So it's kind of like collective hunting. It's pretty sweet. And the other thing that we love is wars. We had World War B, but previous to World War B was the PL versus BNI down in like Catch, and they used to live in Zendaya, which was in Derelict, and Sparlaget in Placid, if I'm remembering correctly. But these kind of areas were absolutely great because you had a wartime alliance that was like ready to fight you at any time. And since you were a third party in that case, if you knew when a major timer was, for example, like a POS timer, if you showed up to a timer like that, it becomes a three-way fight. And there's nothing more enjoyable in this entire game than a multi-way fleet fight. It's just so dynamic, so interesting, so quick-paced. It's the greatest thing ever. So if you can ever find yourself in a scenario where there's 3 or 4-way fight, it's absolutely fantastic. I think the largest multi-way fight I had ever been a part of was there was 8 different fleets battling in Zendaya at one time on Saturday. It was yeah, that was quite the fleet. That was ganked 110, so 90 weeks ago, I guess, whenever that was. But yeah, that was the absolute best.
Okay, that's really interesting. I guess I've only been a part of a few of those. I've never really thought about that since since you're in PSI, you can just kind of third party everything because you have really no allegiance to anyone. But how do you handle that? Have you guys? I know Jayne, I believe you've had to team up with other alliances before to fight a larger foe, and then you kind of brawl it out. Does that happen pretty often as well?
So normally what happens in these large fights, like 7 ways, is that any competent fleet commander in EVE grows a contact list for all the other competent fleet commanders in EVE. It's kind of like the secret network, I guess. And when you're in in a system like Zendaya, remembering that fight from Ganked 110, you are in conversation with all of the other fleet commanders. Cutting deals, we'll go here if you go here, and trying to position based on what the other groups are doing. So there's a lot of communication between the other FCs, and I think there's a lot of communication, a lot more communication between enemy FCs than most people realize. It was one of the guys from Goons was purged. I don't remember what his name was. He was a Korean dude or something, and he was kicked for sharing fleet locations with a hostile fleet. I don't remember the exact details of it, but when I heard that, I was like, okay, yeah, sure. 90% of people will probably be like, oh, that's terrible. But I was like, that is a daily occurrence. If you're roaming, even if you're going for an objective, it's common courtesy to let the other side know that you're not going to fight them. There's some groups that don't do this, notoriously Goons. But if you're not forming for a timer, it's not very much fun to form and not get a fight. So, it happens quite often that one fleet commander will tell another fleet commander whether they're going to show or not, where they are, when they're coming, their status, things like this. So, I know that's not universal, but both in NPSI and in NBSI, this occurs. I just think it's more prevalent in the NPSI community.
Yeah, and I know I was gonna say within NBSI, obviously you have like your own alliance, all your OPSEC, all your intel. How do you kind of handle that within NPSI? Do you guys have to like kind of rely on other people? Do you kind of run it on your own, kind of through I guess your alliance or from what you know with timers? How does that all work?
So you're asking like how do we get or where do we get our intel from?
Yeah, how do you handle that with an NPSI versus an NBSI or an alliance like type fleet?
So either there's 2 main ways. Number one, somebody will shit post about something on Reddit, and we'll be like, oh neat. Number 2 is that Specter fleet, as of like last week or something, we had 163 fleet commanders. And those 163 fleet commanders aren't from one organization. They're from organizations all over the game. So, people in Waffles, people in Goons, people in CO2, people in Provi, they all have their timers, and they'll talk about it in the Spectre Fleet command chat. So we probably have the largest informal intel network in the game, or one of the largest. It's we know about fights happening all over the universe. It's really quite easy to find a fight or a timer.
And so when you do find these, how do you kind of keep it Because I know Specter has done at least capital type stuff, and those are a little more risky or a little. You kind of want to use them as a surprise or like a trump card. How do you guys kind of keep that or your own information kind of OPSEC? So how do you keep people from figuring
So
out where you're gonna go?
capitals are a whole different ballgame. The problem with NPSI capitals is that we run so many different fleet types and from so many different locations, it's very hard to stage capitals. For example, if we run a fleet down in Amar, we would want capitals near the domain Losec. But if we run a fleet, the next day out at Torinos, way up north, we would want them in range of Theranin. So having people specifically within the NPSI world owning capitals is a huge challenge. We've tried it before, but you start moving away from the principles that makes NPSI great. So the way that we've been doing it most recently is teaming up with small groups of people, namely low-sec groups, that have a capital force, and then secretly working with them. So again, during yesterday's fight against Providence, since Phoebe has slowly becoming more comfortable with using their capitals, and they've been throwing them around quite freely. So we had an arranged fight against Providence 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks maybe, and we brought Maelstroms, and they brought Nightmares. And when they realized that their reps weren't holding and we were being able to actually kill their Nightmares, they brought in fax machines to stabilize their reps, and then they brought in DPS carriers with their fighters, and it turned the tides quite dramatically, and we weren't able to recover from it. So for yesterday's arranged fleet fight, what happened is that I organized a week in advance, say, we're having this arranged fight. If you want to come, cool, time scheduled. Then I went to another group. I was like, okay, if Pravi drops craps, you guys be on standby, and we'll turn it into a capital level brawl. And that's what happened. We fought with subcaps. Pravi brought fax machines. We fought until we couldn't break anything underneath the reps of fax machines. Brought our capitals in, escalated the fight naturally, and had a good brawl. So the capitals are very rarely under the control of Spectre Fleet itself. Normally we work with groups here and there, just to get involved with a capital brawl.
Okay, that makes sense. Because I know, as a streamer of frequent NPSI fleets, people always whine and cry about OPSEC and then lack of OPSEC, and even the comments in Twitch chat are like talking about leaks and like what is OPSEC. And so I was always curious as to how you guys handled that.
We just don't bother with OPSEC because we just don't bother with it.
So you don't.
We don't do big. We're not into the big, escalations and stuff like that. That's what Spectre's for. They have that ability. We may bat phone people though.
Apex is mad that I told you we organized that fight earlier. It's funny.
We just don't bother with it. We announce everything. We don't hide anything. It's just, why bother? It's gonna just stress you out. Alder Navy is friendly. Oops, sorry. Hold on.
No, no worries. I always crack up whenever you do that, so it's pretty funny.
Got my scepters in the pocket right now, trying to find us a target.
All right. So I guess I was always just really curious. So it's good to hear that you guys either like delegate that to someone else, another group, or you just don't deal with it at all because it's not worth the time.
We've tried it a whole bunch of different ways. I guess I can say over the years now. Such an interesting thing to look back. We've had a specific invite-only group that worked with capitals. We've tried, getting people to buy their own capitals. We've tried people supplying capitals specifically for an event, and if it dies, they buy it. If not, they give it back. But really, in the world of NPSI, whatever is the simplest solution is often the best, and just working with the groups that already have their capitals, already know what they're doing, is way better. When I'm talking about that lowest common denominator, coming back to that, if I am getting people within Spectre Fleet to fly capitals, I have to assume they've never flown a capital before. And, there's a lot of intricacies to flying a capital, especially if your job is triage. Cap management, local rep management, target management, positioning, it's a nightmare. You can't teach a person to be a good capital pilot in one day if it's their first time. So trying to rely on new people to fly capitals for you is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like it would be too much fun trying to handle that.
We've tried it. It wasn't nearly as disastrous as I just made it sound, but it definitely was not good for the blood pressure. Let's just say that.
I mean, when you're doing events, kind of the event of having a capital, or like capitals in events, is usually to entice people to come in and kill them. And so, I guess if you're doing that, then it's not. Is that less stressful? Because then you're just like, oh, we need to lose these carriers. Like it's no big deal. Just let people
That
attack
is
us.
absolutely less stressful, yes. So there's, I guess, yeah, there's the two different ways we use capitals. We use it to, advertise a fight. For example, I Want Disc did it with a Revenant most famously. Like we're gonna have a Revenant here at this time. Come kill us. That's a great way to get a fight if you don't know who fleet commanders are. Fleet commanders, all they want is a fight. They don't really give a shit about capital kills. Most people, maybe a super capital, maybe, but yeah, I'm sure there's some people who'd be like, I don't even log in for less than a Titan kill. Like, it's the fight itself that is interesting and engaging, not the kill mail itself. So, I think you see a lot of these events, come kill my carrier, from people who aren't regulars in the fleet command world, I guess, if I can call it that. If I want to fight, I'm not going to bait somebody out with a capital. I'm going to talk to them directly or find out about a timer. They're just much more efficient ways of finding a fight. And although, advertising a carrier kill or something might be interesting to, people who have never seen a carrier before, or never killed a carrier before, those kinds of people aren't going to be able to get on the kill mail because it's going to be defended by a fleet. So, one lone dude in his Atron who wants to come help kill a carrier, it's just not going to work out. So those events, I think, have declined in popularity recently, simply because, I'm not going to say simply. There's a lot of reasons why those events have decreased in popularity. But either one fleet or one side tries too hard, the little guy can't have any fun. It's yeah, I don't think you'll see many of those fleets or events in the future. But yeah, the second reason that we use capitals in NPSI is to be prepared against the counter use of capitals. So again, because Specter fleet is so huge right now, weekend fleets are rarely less than 100 people. The frequency in which capitals have been used against us has dramatically increased. So we rarely ever offensively use capitals, but the only real true counter to a capital escalation is another capital escalation.
Yeah,
So,
we're scanning out an Aeon right now, talking about capitals.
you're
Not at,
scanning
it
out a
doesn't
what?
appear an Aeon. It does not appear to be at a pause. We're scanning him out right now.
Do you have combat probes? You can combat
Ridiculous.
probe them.
Yeah, we always have combat probes on our rooms.
Yeah, we'll get him Molly safe logs, and then he can't defend himself.
Yep, I will be right back.
Good luck.
That'd be funny. I'd form a fleet if you tackled a Neon. I'm not quite that much of a bitter vet yet that I won't form for a super cap. I'll still farm for supers and titans.
Yeah.
If you tackle a carrier though, let me know if it dies.
All right, so I guess that kind of leads to my next question. So you mentioned like the little guy not getting on these kill mails. Is that kind of who you tailor NPSIs for, or like who do you really tailor this NPSI for, and like how do you kind of entice people to join your NPSI?
I don't really want to entice people to join NPSI. It's not really the point. I don't tailor it to the little guys and the new bros. There's groups that specifically work with new bros that do a better job than I do. Pandemic Horde, Brave Newbies when they were actually good, EVE University, RVB to an extent. These groups are groups that deal specifically with new players and do a fairly good job of it in most scenarios. We are accepting of everyone, but not for everyone. And if I was to say that Specter Fleet was for anyone in particular, it'd be for people who are happy with the game and just want to casually experience this specific aspect of EVE, and that aspect being fleet PvP. You can be in a high sec, you don't have to have any activity requirements like there are in PL. You don't have to live in a nullsec system that could be conquered and you could lose all your assets. You can do what you want to do, most of the time in the game, and then experience, fleet combat through Specter Fleet. So the majority of people who fly in Specter Fleet are people who legitimately enjoy the PvP experience. If you fight a group like, Russians are pretty bad for this. If you fight a group in Russian space, for example, the majority of people who are in that fleet are people who would rather be ratting, mining, making ISK. That's why those people live in nullsec. They live in nullsec because there's money to be made there. They fly in fleets not because they enjoy the fleets themselves, but because they want to defend the ability to do the activities that they actually enjoy. So we get a much higher percentage of people in Specter Fleet who are there for the fleet than nullsec organizations. So, I think there's that interesting discrepancy that you don't find anywhere else.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. How do you guys actually, I guess, like Specter is a little more aged now where it's been around for a long time, so a lot of people know about it. But how do you really advertise your NPSI then to groups, like to get people to join?
Well, word of mouth for us, and and of course we're quite old too, and we're actually older than Spectre, not by much.
Yes, you are.
But we are older. I know that drives you nuts. Yes, I'm teasing you, Jayne. Vegas this year? Yes.
Yes, absolutely. I got a player speaker position this Vegas again. Oh, Greygal muted herself again. More fleet commanding.
Yep, sorry. Yeah, we've got it's mostly word of mouth and stuff. We've also on purpose avoided growing too big by design. We never wanted to be really big. We never wanted to be the next Ganked. And that is actually a surprising challenge to maintain, staying true to our original founding philosophy of the size of fleet we wanted to aim for, the size of ships we wanted to mostly target and stuff, to be our focus. We are primarily cruiser and below. We're in a cruiser fleet today. We tend to do destroyers more than anything else. Our average fleet size is right at 45 to 55, and we like it that way. That's our market, and that attracts others. And then we also have people who routinely, as we joke, graduate to Spectre fleet, and we never see them again.
I hadn't heard that before. That's actually pretty funny.
Not that many, but some.
Yeah, word of
Be
mouth
right
is
back again.
definitely the primary way of advertising. It's not just people like friends telling their friends that, hey, this is cool, you should check it out. And when we engage in a fleet fight, like there was one very particular one. We flew Hyperions into Camella and fought the combined forces of Shadow Cartel and Pandemic Legion. And we actually beat them, taking out like 3 of their triage, forcing their T3s off the gang, forcing their Rattlesnake gang off. That fight, where videos were produced about it, battle reports were written about it, people talked about it. They saw Pandemic Legion getting a bloody nose from Spectre Fleet, and people go, Spectre Fleet, what's that? That's not an alliance I've ever heard of. They look into it, and there's a lot of people who find out about Spectre Fleet through our events, our battle reports, and that sort of way. The other way that we find people get involved with Spectre Fleet is new corps. Now, this is kind of like one of the lesser known things, but if you've ever tried to start a corp, it can be very stressful trying to provide activities for people in your corp to do. If you're a 7-man corp, running and organizing an event takes the same amount of effort for 7 people as it does 17 people or 70 people. You're still taking your time running an event. It's a lot of effort. So a lot of new corps, what they do is while they're still building, while they're still getting established, the CEOs will use Spectre Fleet as their ops. So, they'll fly together as a social unit, they'll be friends together, but for actual events, fleets, things to do in the game, they'll use Spectre Fleet, which is an interesting dynamic that is actually rather new. But like entire corps of people will join Spectre Fleets occasionally.
And we have that happen all the time where we have groups join us in bulk, right? Partly, I think that was because just the way we started out. We have several corporations that we see the bulk of their members every Sunday, week after week. Warping Fleet, 6-K. Oops, wrong fleet, wrong com.
That always cracks me up. But I was going to say, do you guys find that, I guess with new corps, is it more of, not only the effort they have to put in, but finding content itself? Whereas, with Spectre and then Redemption Road are obviously already established and can easily find content, as we were discussing earlier. Do you think that's also part of the reason?
I don't know. I think that Spectre Fleet is very much a replacement for a corporation having to join an alliance. The only reason that Spectre Fleet has so much content is because we have a lot of people running a lot of tiny events. We don't have one person coordinating everything. Like, if a alliance goes to war, it's the alliance executor that basically coordinates every fight, every timer, everything. But in Specter Fleet, you have a whole bunch of people doing a little piece of the puzzle that allows activity to more or less be constant. And just in the last couple of months, Specter Fleet has had to add the capability to run fleets simultaneously, because we were running so many operations that fleets would not end before another one would start forming. So now we run consecutive fleet operations 7 days a week, which is absolutely absurd. If you told me that a year ago, I would have laughed at you. But it's just the scale of effort for a small corporation to get started is completely absurd. Most corporations to get started would have to tag themselves into an alliance that was very active, and that gave them a source of content beyond the corp itself. Small corps, when they're starting out, cannot be self-sufficient. The amount of effort required to do something like that is just sky high, and burnout is extreme. It's not that the CEOs or the directors are incompetent or ill-mannered or not knowledgeable enough. It's simply that the effort is extreme, and they'll burn out if they try and do everything themselves. So I think the traditional way of starting a corp would have been to find an alliance, but Specter Fleet is serving as an alternate source of content. So, my corp, Sanctuary of Shadows, started the same way. We were a social corp, and we had 40 people or something in the corp before we actually chose an area of space to stage out of. We would all live in different places, do different things, and then meet up for fleets, finish the fleet, go different ways. And then once we got large enough and successful enough, we're like, hey, we're actually pretty good at this now. Let's pick an area of space and try and plant a flag. But yeah.
It's really interesting. I guess I never thought about that with MPS sizes, like taking on small newbie corps, or I guess not newbie, but just small corps to help them start up.
Yeah, you get that a lot in type personalities. Is that they want to control their own destiny. They want to really they want to be in charge of something, and it's annoying to them, I guess, being in Specter Fleet, because I guess kicking me out of my throne is going to be pretty difficult. Someone will do it someday, but they want to be in charge of their own destiny. So maybe a fleet commander, for example, becomes very successful and very popular in Specter Fleet, and this has happened quite a few times. We have people like Tel Kontar, who started Grey Eagles. We have people like Apex Obaris, who has started Bird Squad. Very competent, very charismatic individuals who started basically as a fleet commander in Specter Fleet and became famous through running fleets. And those people start their own corps because they don't want to be flying under anyone else's banner. So you can have corps coming to Specter Fleet, and you can also have Specter Fleet spawning corporations. So it works both ways. But even the corporations that grow out of Specter Fleet, they remember their heritage, and they'll come back and fly.
That's good to hear. And then you had mentioned kicking you out of your throne. Does that mean you don't ever really plan on leaving Specter and PSIs while you play?
I would be. It would be very surprising if I gave up Specter Fleet. Like right now, we're doing a lot of back end work. We're building a website to add more resources and whatnot. So we have big plans for Specter Fleet. Like Greygal is trying not to grow larger. Specter Fleet is very much of the opinion of, if we can do it, we should do it, and if we don't think we should do it, we should try just to see if we can. So yeah, we're gonna grow as big as we can and see what happens. But yeah, it's we got a lot of things coming up, especially in the next couple of months, and we'll just see where it takes us. Like Specter Fleet, I'm not sure if people really understand how massive Specter Fleet is as an organization. Like, we have 160 fleet commanders. 160. 6 seniors. I think we're at about 40 like full fleet commanders, and then over 100 juniors. They might not run fleets very often, they may not be very good, but they're still a part of the organization. And we have something like 13,000 unique people sign into our Mumble every week. Unique IP addresses. So 13,000 people a week participate in an event of one form or another. And there was one other stat that I wanted to share, but oh yeah, the maximum channel, so the most people that we've had in our channel at one time is 1,287. So we've had 4-digit numbers in our channel at one time. It's the largest channel in the game. It's absolutely massive, and I think we can do better. So we'll see what the future holds.
That is some crazy statistic. That's 13,000, not 1,300.
13,000 people.
Wow, that is crazy. All right, Greg, I'll pitch this question to you. So I asked Jayne about ever leaving NPSI or leaving Specter. Do you plan on always doing NPSI with Redemption Road as long as you play this game?
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere. This is how I've been doing this almost from the beginning, over 7 years. I can't see myself in any other kind of lifestyle. I
That's
really can't. I love it.
that's actually really positive to hear. Let's everyone know how great like running NPSI organizations are or can be.
It's ultimately it's about the people, not the ticker. It's about the person, the personality, and not the skill points. And in NPSI, none of that matters. What matters is who you are flying together with everyone else as a pilot, and just enjoying the moments. Then, no stress, no expectations of anything other than a good fight, a lot of giggles, and hopefully a whelp
Yeah, so
of somebody else.
There's a great sense of community within the NPSI organizations. Like Mangala, for example, his work with RVB and then RVB ganked before he quit the game was absolutely fantastic and pretty much laid the foundation for this type of playstyle to exist. Even though he's quit, he shows up to Eve Vegas, for example. He comes and we're still friends. And if people in Spectre Fleet or in Redemption Road, I'm sure if they join an organization that is not NPSI friendly, like prevents their members from flying with Spectre Fleet or with Redemption, we're still friends with those individuals. We'll talk and come back. And the social, like the channel, because it's open, unlike an alliance where if you leave an alliance, you lose access to their services, you lose access to like the actual physical alliance chat in the game. Even if you stop flying with Spectre Fleet, you can still be in the channel, be social, talking to people, saying hi. It happens way too frequently where somebody will leave the game and then a year later they'll just wave in Spectre Fleet and half the channel will be like, "Oh, you're back. How you doing?" So it's a much more social atmosphere than you get out of like a pure alliance, because those alliances are geared to be social with your alliance and your alliance only. And if you leave that alliance, you're basically cut out of that social circle. And that is very much the reason why my main character Jayne hasn't left Triumvirate. I don't do very much with them at all, but almost all of my old friends from Eve are in that alliance and in that corp, and that's why my character remains there.
Yeah. Yep. We actually designed Affirmative right from the beginning to be an NPSI alliance. Our comms are open. We do have a couple of private channels for, alliance only stuff. When people leave us, although they'll lose access to some parts of our forums and comms, they still have access to bulk of it. Because we didn't want that. We wanted to have the benefit of an alliance and being public and running public open fleets without that whole loss of sense of connection when you leave.
That makes a lot of sense, at least to me.
It's a challenge.
Yeah. No, I get what you mean. It sucks when like either alliances break or deteriorate, and then you no longer, I guess, have that kind of sense of community. Like it's hard to reach out and find people. That kind of leads to my next question, or my next comment, I guess. Jayne, you mentioned Mangala, and I'm pretty sure Mangala still plays. I remember him leading some RVB NPSIs, but I was going to have him on the show, but he had prior commitments. So he runs Red versus Blue and helps run Ganked, so I know he's another prominent member of the community. I also met him at Vegas. And then I was going to have Diane, who runs Hellcats Reloaded, which is the all-female corp. And she runs NPSIs as well, both like co-gendered, co-sex or whatever, so that both guys and girls can join. But it's a really good way. I know a lot of people are always like, "Oh, there are no women in Eve," but Diane runs an NPSI with usually a lot of chicks showing up, and so those are always really fun. I know she ran one last night that I missed, but I heard it was a good time. So I'll give them their shout outs. I guess that leads to my next question is how
Open Fleet said X.
Wrong comms. There, she got it. So my next question would be someone coming new into the game, or I guess new into FCing or running fleets, how exactly would they kind of set up an NPSI? Because I know both of you guys have been running these for a long time, so the game back then probably has changed a little bit to now. So how exactly would you recommend someone setting up an NPSI or running an NPSI fleet?
You're asking how would they run an NPSI fleet themselves?
Yeah, kind of like setting one up. So if they're new and they say, "Oh, I want to run an NPSI," how exactly should they go about reaching out to people to join, or kind of, I guess, advertising it to get more publicity, to get more people in, so then they can maybe find fights? And how
So
would you go?
running an NPSI fleet on your own is extremely challenging because, like Greygal and I said, we advertise based on word of mouth, and part of that word of mouth advertising is that these groups are trustworthy and competent. You will not be AWOXed. You won't have shit fleet commanders. Now, this is a very important piece of running NPSI because 2 years ago, and this might be before you started playing, Rain, CCP ran a live event out of the live events channel. Now, if you know the intricacies of channels in EVE, which almost nobody but me does, the live events channel is actually not CCP hosted. It's hosted by a group that keeps track of the CCP run events. That's all they do. So CCP got 2 people from this live events channel that hosted it to coordinate this live event, and the live event was something like pirates have set up some sort of base in nullsec. You need to form and go fight them off. So it was basically going to be like a group PvE event thing. Now, there were like 600, 800 people showed up to this, under fleet commanders who had no business commanding, 600 people, let alone 6, in my opinion. And they jumped into nullsec to try and do this site, and Pandemic Legion was waiting for them, and they killed them down to the last man, and there were faction battleships and so many very, very shiny capsules and whatnot, and it was an absolute PR disaster for CCP at the time. So that was the last time that they had ever, or at least in my memory, that they ran an event where, they'd actually required a player-controlled fleet, just because it was such a disaster. And that, in general, has put a very bad taste in people's mouth towards running fleets with people they don't know, which is why this this importance of reputation and word of mouth is important. So I would say it would be difficult, if not verging on impossible, to run your own NPSI fleet as a one-off. The better way to do it would be to run your fleet out of an established channel. It doesn't have to be Specter Fleet. It could be Redemption. It could be anything like that. Out of that channel, just using their the social capital that comes with their name. If you're not interested in running under another group's banner, just using their kind of reputation as your own, the only other option I can really think of is trying to get people involved through some serious, like you'd have to do like a charity, you'd have to team up with a partner that had a lot of reach, like I Want ISK or EveBet or EveNT, something like that, get the advertising out there, and that would be a perfect example of something that you would want to, field a super capital with. And this is, of course, if you're wanting to get, a decent sized fleet. And by that, I mean 100 or more. If you want to just run a tiny fleet, like 10, 20, your friends, get in a location, take a doctrine, and go. It can be as simple as that.
All right, that makes sense. So larger fleets might be almost near impossible.
Larger fleets are extremely difficult without reputation.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Extremely difficult.
Yeah, you really have to. The best NPSI groups, you've already built up your reputation in some form or fashion, or you have, like Jayne has already talked about, hitchhiked on somebody else. Each group tends to help bring other groups, lift them up and stuff. So many of the little groups out there right now got their start either through the Specter channel or through the Redemption channel or through the Gang channel. Heck, if it wasn't for the Gang channel, I don't think either Specter or Redemption would be what we are.
This is absolutely correct. Specter itself spawned out of another group, RVV Ganked, which is why I say that without Mangala's work, this organization, these communities wouldn't exist. But, it can work other ways. Alpha Star Pilot is a very good example of this. Alpha Star Pilot was a very well-known fleet commander. He had a lot of, people knew who he was active. And, he flew with RV Ganked, with Spectre Fleet, and then he started his own organization called Perpetrator Fleets, I think. Like it was a play on the word purple and perpetrator.
Yeah, and funny enough, he was his corporation that he was in at the time was one of the founding members of Affirmative. So it's funny how interrelated we are. Yeah.
Yeah, but with Perpetrator Fleets, like, it worked. He ran fleets out of there. But the reason that it wasn't as successful as it could have been is that he was the only one running it. So yes, it was his own. He had his name on it. but there weren't as many people, and there was really no functional difference with him running it out of the Perpetrator Fleet channels as if he would have run the fleet out of the Redemption Road channel or the Specter Fleet channel. Amongst these communities, there's such a large amount of crossover between the different groups. It's I'm trying to think of a nicer way to put this. I guess the bluntest way to put it, since I can't find a nice way to put it, I'm going to be very blunt. Spectre Fleet's existence is extremely suffocating to anyone else who wants to create an NPSI channel or organization. Yes, that's the nicest way to put it.
That's pretty blunt. I mean, you're kind of crediting yourself for the non-existence of other NPSIs that actually really want to start up.
Well, not just the non-existence, but a lot of the Bomber's Bar itself has decreased in popularity since Spectre Fleet has got more popular. It's a niche which I don't think supports too many organizations on the scale of Spectre Fleet.
For me, you can't just have one person. You have to have a team, as you've already said, and that's the real issue and the real challenge for new groups is that they think, hey, I'll get this started. I just have to FC once a week or something. They don't realize just how much actual work you really need and how much support you need. You need scouts. You need, people just to do whatever, probing, things like that, advertising. Fleet invites. It'll wear you out so fast. Heck, get that people, guys. Oops.
Yeah, it's absolutely not a one-man job. It's an organization.
Yeah. All right, kill him. Oops. So on that note, I want to thank you for letting me have you here, and let's get me on here one night when I'm not FC in a fleet.
Yeah, no problem. So my show is always at 2100 Eve time, and I usually...
don't play station games with your entire fleet. Anyway, we do, like I said, Redemption Roam. Our channel in game is Redemption Roam. We also have a mailing list, which we need to get them to raise the limit on the mailing list again, Jayne.
Yeah, oh my God.
It's called Redemption Roams.
They flat out told me no.
Yeah, I'm going to have to start using my charm on them at Eve Vegas.
Yeah,
we do roams every Sunday, every Thursday, and random times other times, but we mostly have ours scheduled.
Jayne, you want to give a Spectre Fleet shout out?
If you're interested in anything I've talked about and don't already know what I've been talking about, then the channel in-game is Spectre Space Fleet, and Spectre is spelled with an R-E, not an E-R. So that's Spectre Fleet channel in-game. All the information you could ever want is there, so I won't prattle on.
And, yep, same thing with us. Also, our monthly new player room, which is for players new to EVE. We routinely have people less than a week old in the room. It's on or around the 15th every month. We give ships out for free on that. Please spread the word. We don't get near enough new players on it. We get lots of players who are new to PvP, but we want more actual newbies, so spread the word.
Greygal, before you go, you should try out one of the fleet concepts that we tried. What we did was we all formed in a system, and then we gave people 30 minutes to go to any of the starter systems in EVE and grab a new player, and then bring them back. And then so we had, we started with 50 people. Those 50 go out to the starter systems, find a new player who's just learning how to play, and be like, hey, do you want to learn how to PvP? And they're like, fuck yeah. So you get a mentor and a newbie, and then you come back, and then you do a roam with them through LoSec. So if that person has any questions, they're talking specifically to their mentor, not to the fleet commander. It worked out wonderfully. It was a lot of fun. You should try it.
Yeah, we do that actually. We call that Adopt a Newbie rooms, and we do those.
Oh, is that what it is? Cool.
Yeah, where we just a group of us will go to and talk people, day-old players, into joining our fleet and take them out. We just don't advertise those ones. We just do them randomly.
Those
That's
sound
so cool.
actually super, super fun. I know I've been on Greygal's New Bro Roams, and it was really fun flying a T1 Logi, and I'm just like, yay, we're dying to big ships, but it was super, super fun.
Yeah, it's always my objective on every Nuba roam is to kill one ship worth more than our entire fleet. So if we're flying around Tech 1 frigates, you get a faction cruiser done, and then you drop that stat, and all the new bros go wild. And they're like, "Oh my god!" It's a lot of fun.
I need to get back to being an actual FC here and taking care of my fleet. Thanks. See you in Vegas. Ring.
Thank you.
Come stream the rest of the room if you want.
Maybe.
Bye bye.
Take care. Johnny
So are you
Pew.
gonna come stream tomorrow's fleet? We got an arranged fight against Ravi at 1900, and then another one against CO2 at 2200, I think. So like 4 hours of fleets tomorrow.
I should be able to. That's the Eagle room, right?
No, it got switched to Hurricanes, I think. It was gonna be Eagles, yes.
It has to be Eagles because it's an American holiday. Like what?
Yeah, the All-American Eagles. Yeah.
I was so excited when I saw it. I was like, I'm definitely streaming this. This looks like so much fun.
Yeah, America. No, we do Russian roleplay themes so often. We're gonna have to do an American one.
I just remember your Easter one where everyone would spam bunnies and local and it'd say hop hop motherfucker or something like that.
Yeah, the Gilas. Oh man, that was so funny.
Yeah.
You that Greasters event. Did I ever tell you the story about that?
No.
So it was out in the CSM minutes that it was with our meeting with Team Astro Sparkle, and Team Astro Sparkle was like, we're thinking about doing an Easter event. So I was like, I'm thinking, I was like, oh, Easter, well, that obviously has to be a Garistas event. Now, Falcon, who was just sitting across from the table from me, heard this as a pun on the word Garistas and Easter. And he thought that I had mashed those two words together and come up with Garisters, which is what, eventually was like put out in official branding. It was the Garisters event. So I was credited with coming up with this name for this event. But what I thought of was that in the lore for the Garistas, the two founders of the Garistas Pirates are Fatal and the Rabbit. But no, Falcon just misheard me and thought I was making some shitty pun instead of referencing the Eve lore, and I accidentally got the event named the Garisters. So that's about the most annoying thing that's happened to me this year, but yeah, just a funny story.
That's still hilarious, and I think with that, we're past 2200. Yeah, 2200. So I'll probably end the stream now, and we can just chat, or I might go join Greygal's room. I'm not quite sure what I'm doing.
I'm assuming she didn't actually tackle the Aeon, which is too bad.
She said it was an.
I'm probably gonna go back and play Overwatch. I'm trying not to suck, but yeah.
Oh man, but thank you for joining me, Jayne. That was
super it was a pleasure.
Super helpful. Thanks for not massacring my 5-man NPSI last week, by the way.
Man, I was so sad. Again, we're talking about the last time that CCP hosted or encouraged this high-sec event, that they got hundreds of people attending their event. And this is what I was thinking was going to happen. I was like, CCP is going to advertise Rain's fleet, on air with the 07 show with, 4,000 people watching. She's going to get 300 people showing up, and then I'm going to be there in TD3 to fight her. And then you got, 7 people. And I was like, well, that's fucking disappointing. Anyway, yeah. Thanks for the invite, and I'll see you tomorrow as well as in Vegas.
Yeah, take care. Have a good day.
Take care.
Alright. Bye, guys. I'll play my outro video. Thanks for hanging out. They told me after you guys stopped touring, so thank you for not murdering me. But if you guys Johnny does YouTube. So if you want to follow Johnny Pew's YouTube channel, you guys should go do that. As well as the Even T YouTube channel, because that's where this video will be. So I'm going to play my outro. Have a good day, you guys.